Have you ever wondered what gets in the way of reaching your goals? If you're like most people, you've probably found that it's a lot harder to make the changes you want to make in your life than it first feels when you're feeling excited to go after what you want. So today you're going to find out exactly why that is. And if you listen all the way to the end, you'll find out how to make the process of making changes in your life and your business easier. The truth is, change is hard because we're often way too hard on ourselves. We're too critical, we're not constructive enough. On a basic level, we often resist doing hard things because they're uncomfortable. And biologically, we are not programmed to go frolicking towards the things that appear to be causing us discomfort. Just the opposite, right? We're wired to move away from whatever seems to be causing us pain or discomfort, whether that pain is physical or emotional. And we all have a different level of tolerance to discomfort. But discomfort quickly becomes unbearable when we create additional discomfort for ourselves by trying to speed up the process of change by being critical and harsh with ourselves, right? And often that inner criticism can be subtle. It can look like getting impatient or frustrated with yourself, or holding yourself to perfectionistic standards, or never taking the time to lock in your appreciation for all the things that you've accomplished and overcome, right? Not measuring your progress from where you started, but from where you want to end up. So if you want to make changes, you have to find a way to make the discomfort that's an inherent part of making changes part of the pleasure that you enjoy. You have to make the pain that you're going through purposeful. The more you embrace the discomfort, the more that you plan for it, the more that you know that it's part of the deal when you're going about making changes, the more you start looking forward to the challenge and look at obstacles as opportunities. But it's also important to know when to dial back the intensity of the discomfort to make the changes you want to make sustainable. Think about what it takes to build muscle. It's not about just, lifting heavy weights and always carrying weights around with you. That doesn't make sense. It's actually about time under tension. Gradually increasing the load over time is what builds strength without causing injury. The same goes for personal growth. Sustainable changes are made when you stretch yourself beyond your zone of comfort and then gradually increase the level of challenge, and it can take some iteration experimentation. When you're working on becoming the next version of yourself and challenging yourself to grow, the discomfort becomes part of the thrill. It's kind of like that rush of endorphins you get after a good workout. People often misunderstand this, though. What's motivating them to change is they're trying to achieve something that really can only be worked on from the inside out, which is more worthiness or acceptability. But that's not the point of going through growth. The point of improving isn't to prove yourself or to become less like yourself. It's about becoming more like the best parts of yourself, expressing that more, right? So the reason to embrace discomfort and growth is because it's fun and it's fulfilling. It's about showing yourself what you're capable of, which is the biggest thrill in the world. Now, why is this so challenging for most of us? Well, our brains are wired to seek comfort and to avoid pain. It's been like that for millions of years. We love what's familiar because it's safe, right? Instant gratification is compelling because our brains are programmed to reward us for it. When the results don't show up immediately, our brains have a bias towards the present moment, making it hard to focus on what's going to happen out in the future, so we can get discouraged. This is where we often disempower ourselves. We disconnect from our emotions and our bodies. We check out from ourselves. We seek to avoid discomfort rather than embrace it. We try to get relief from discomfort by indulging in sources of immediate gratification. And then we beat ourselves up over, seeking out that kind of pleasure, which creates a cycle of false pleasure and self-criticism and eventually caves in on itself, right? So what if we change that cycle? What if we shifted from beating ourselves up to building ourselves up? We would go from reacting to our lives to creating them and feeling more agency in relationship to them. So what would your life look like if you were even 10% more constructive with yourself? Now imagine if it were 50% more constructive. It'd be so powerful, right? The process of change is simple, really. The first is to make a plan or to make some decisions ahead of time so that you stop making your decisions about how you're operating on autopilot, right, in the moment. This is how we create what's called a pattern interrupt. We need to remember that we operate mostly subconsciously. We're not aware moment to moment why we do what we do. It's force of habit. So we need to create an interrupt. And that's where creating a plan helps. Second, you either follow through with that plan or you don't. Simple as that, right? If you do, you want to celebrate that, because celebrating your wins is how you lock in the law of compound interest. What you appreciate, appreciates. And if you don't follow through, you want to evaluate. Look at what worked well, what needs improvement, and what you'll do differently, and how you can enjoy the process of making changes more, right? Evaluating is what helps you move out of that criticism mindset to one that's more constructive. Most people don't make plans or evaluate. They're too critical with themselves, and that's what prevents them from making the changes they say they want to make. They expect themselves to change like a light switch without any feedback. So the other thing to consider is that sometimes change is hard because we don't actually want to make the changes we say we want to make. A lot of the time we're conditioned to want something, or we're told that we need to have different things to have a good life. And, even a mentor of mine shared with me recently how she was working with one of her clients and growing a coaching business, and her energy was just totally off. But when she talked about other things, she lit up. So my mentor asked her point blank, is coaching even something that you want to do? And the client said, you know what? That's interesting. No one's really asked me that. And honestly, at this point, I don't actually know. And this highlights a critical point. It's essential to ensure that the changes you're striving for are genuinely aligned with what you want, not just what you think you should want or how much you've invested into a particular path. When our goals are authentically ours, the process of change becomes more meaningful. It becomes more fluid and less forced. So think about change from this perspective. In this moment, all of the possibilities for your life exist. The body you want, the money you want to make, the person that you want to be, it's all possible right now. But when you start to consider these possibilities for your lives, what happens is the brain pulls you back to the familiar, to the safe, to what's already known. Your brain is programmed to get its possibilities from the past because the past is over and it's known. And the primitive part of your brain wants to keep you safe. But you have the ability to create possibility from the future and from your imagination. And that's where you need to go to create changes. So ask yourself, what's possible for my life? If you're willing to go through the process of change, which is difficult because you have to go off of autopilot to change the trajectory of your life, right? But if you do that, if you go off of autopilot, you can create your future from possibility. And this isn't easy because over many millions of years of human evolution, the mind has adapted to be drawn towards the things that are predictable in order to keep us safe, right? But in order to operate as the CEO of your business, the CEO of your life, the CEO of yourself, really, you have to get in the practice of interrupting or interpreting your current results in service of the results that you are committed to creating. You have to practice seeing possibilities where other people are inclined to see only problems, right? So let's use a sports analogy here to make it a little more concrete and tangible. If you lose a sports match, what can happen is on the other end of that, you can predict that you're going to just keep losing matches. And that's what most people do. Or you could take the time to coach yourself, extract some lessons from the loss, and build skill and use that to build your confidence and really actually reinforce a sense of momentum towards the win and predicting a win out of the loss. That's the essence of a growth mindset. So one of the things that I teach to develop this type of growth mindset is to pre-experience your success, right? A lot of the time we're so focused on worst case scenarios that we don't consider the best. And that requires you to create a sense of future possibility before it manifests as your reality. Most people want to see it to believe it. But if you've been using the self-coaching model, you know that that's not the way change works. The basic premise of the self-coaching model that helps us understand how our programming works is that our thoughts create our feelings fuel our actions, and our actions produce our results. So if we want to change our results, we actually need to be able to believe that change is possible before that change happens, right? It's not see it to believe it, it's believe it to see it. But because our brains are wired to look for the predictable, not for what's possible, Most people predict that their future will not be all that different from their past, even if they want that future to look different, right? But believing change is possible is essential, because otherwise what ends up happening is you keep reacting to your current circumstances instead of taking charge of creating your future circumstances, translating your thoughts into reality. Instead, you're recycling old thoughts, and that's what your brain is going to default to because it's easier. It's more efficient, it feels safe, and it feels believable. But the future is a creation in your mind that requires you to tap into your imagination. Change requires believing in something beyond your current evidence. You have to keep your thoughts, feelings, and actions focused on the results that you want and that you're committed to creating, not the results that you have now. When you take full responsibility for your life, understanding that every result is created by your thought process and your actions and the way you regulate emotionally, it gives you agency and authority over your life. You have to believe it to see it. It's not the other way around. When you change yourself first, then the results that you're creating into your life follow. Everything starts with a flip in perspective, because we don't experience reality as it is, but as we perceive it to be. And when we aren't aware of that, right, that our experience of reality is being modulated by the way we think and feel, we react to what's happening outside of us instead of tapping into the imagination each of us has inside of us to create results that are different from our current reality. Change is hard because it requires awareness, it requires discomfort, it requires you to learn how to be constructive and iterative and to tap into your imagination and let go of your attachments to whatever no longer serves you, which also requires investigating that. What does serve you? And considering, what is the life I really want? Because you have to say no to everything that isn't that. You can choose to grow or you could choose to stay the same, right? There's a discomfort of growth, there's a discomfort of stagnation. You choose the flavor of discomfort. And if you're going to be just uncomfortable either way, why not see what you can achieve in this lifetime? Blow your mind with what's possible, because deep down, there's something within each of us pushing us towards the risk of changing and going through that process of growth and having things not work out and then working through that until we get the experiences we want to have with life. And the thing is, when we don't respond to that inner nudge within ourselves to change, we usually have to, compensate for that by disconnecting from ourselves and hiding from ourselves and over Netflixing and over drinking and over everything. And when we're young, we typically are more future focused, more capable of this exercise of imagination, which makes life kind of exciting. There's things we look forward to, finishing school, getting jobs, married, children, whatever we imagine the future to hold. But as we get older and we have experiences in life, oftentimes we base ourselves on where we've been instead of where we want to go. So where are you going? Do you know what changes you want to make? Have you decided where you want to be in 6 months from now, in a year, in 3 years? Where will you be in 5 years or 10 years if you keep living the way that you currently are? Are you on the path that you need to be on? Because if the answer is no, or I don't know, or I'm not sure, instead of living from what you've already done, you have the opportunity today to make the choice to live from future possibility now. You can decide what kind of future you want to live into, because if you don't decide, if you don't punch in those GPS coordinates, how are you ever supposed to end up somewhere that you want to be or embrace where you are now? As Seneca wrote, if one does not know which port one is sailing to, no wind is favorable. No matter how old or how busy you are in your life right now, embrace the idea that change is possible. Work on being constructive with yourself, and remember that you first need to start to believe that change is possible in order to see it. You need to believe it to see it. If this video helped you out in any way, make sure that you leave a like and click on the screen right now to watch another video just like this one with more tips, strategies, and demos on how to self-coach. I'll see you in the next video.